Daniel Wilson is a 37-year-old working-class transgender veteran running a nonpartisan grassroots congressional campaign for California's 38th Assembly District, where a certain other someone might live. He was born and raised in Maryland by a hardworking single mom. Daniel started working at 14, came out as a lesbian at 16, and graduated from high school the year after 9/11. Unable to break the poverty ceiling, Daniel joined the United States Navy at 24 and served 4 years supporting the troops in the Middle East. After separating from the military, Daniel married the love of his life and came out as transgender. He utilized his GI Bill to attend college and become the first generation in his family to earn a degree. It was the combination of his working class upbringing, wartime military service, his transition from female to male, and the 2016 Bernie Sanders campaign that came together to ignite a political fire that drove him to get involved. He began volunteering at the polls, got hired at his local county elections office, and now he's running for the state assembly to fight for a better California for all of us. Everybody, welcome to the show, Daniel Wilson.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Emily, for that wonderful introduction.
Well, thank you so much for writing a wonderful introduction. Let's start with my questions. One of my favorite ones to start with is always, how did you choose your name?
Mine is actually a really easy story. My birth name is Danielle. So, and from a very early age, it's really funny the later name issues that we had, because at a very young age, as soon as I got to an age in school where they asked you, what do you want to be called? I immediately, Danny, immediately, because at home, my mom would not let me be called Danny. And it wasn't even a male-female thing. She's just like, if I wanted you to be called Danny, I would have named you Danny. Your name is Danielle. I'm calling you Danielle. And she was just very, very firm on that. As soon as I was old enough to give what name I wanted to be called, I immediately switched to Danny. I think it was like 9, 10 years old. And I've been Danny ever since. So for me, it was just kind of a natural progression. I just went with Daniel instead of Danielle. So I just cut the last 2 letters off.
Nice. Was there any intent in that to kind of honor what your parents had named you or anything? Or are you just like, this has worked for me for so long, it's easy enough to just continue to go with it?
Yeah, especially since most of my friends and family were fully supportive. And like I said, already called me Danny. And Danny was already the male version of Daniel. So I got really lucky in that there wasn't a lot of transitioning for the name, as it were, for friends and family. So I think it kind of already just fit and was already, comfortable with everybody. So I just kind of rolled with it. If I hadn't gotten the opportunity as a younger child to start exploring with Danny, my story might have been a little different. But I think since I had already found that comfort zone, I just stuck with it.
So, we mentioned in your bio when you identified, you came out as a lesbian. What was it that finally, how old were you when you finally realized that you were transgender? What was that moment like for you?
Well, I guess the best way to describe it would be the way that one of my best friends responded when I told her, duh. As soon as it clicked, everything made so much sense. And it was like, why didn't I think of this sooner? And especially in my situation where it wasn't necessarily from an early age that I necessarily knew I was in the wrong body. I got lucky that I grew up with 4 cousins, older male cousins that we all went fishing and rode dirt bikes and played together. So it wasn't really until puberty that my body began to bother me. But I do remember specifically, I remember telling my mom at 4 years old, I want a boy haircut. I was really excited when I got my first pair of boy tennis shoes. I was running around showing them off. They didn't have flowers or anything on them, right? They had the sports or Adidas ones or whatever. So I did always enjoy those things and boy clothes, but hadn't fully put together the full, the being born in the wrong body, not feeling like myself. Puberty definitely got, really weird as things started to develop and things started to happen. As I understood that I was, or believed that I was a lesbian as a female, that kind of started to make sense too. I was like, oh, I'm just a tomboy. I'm just the more, dykish lesbian, the more masculine lesbian. And I embraced that fully. Hell yeah, I'm a dyke, you know, let's do this. And so it kind of gave me, I feel like I was very fortunate that I had a kind of alternate outlet that still let me embrace and exist as some form of male. And so I fully relished in that, just literally dove head first. I absolutely, once I embraced being a lesbian and came out that way, it seemed to make a lot of things click to where I didn't really need to think about it for a long time. The partners that I was with referred to me as handsome instead of beautiful. And I would get misgendered in public, but the way I wanted to be, right? Like people would call me sir and I wouldn't correct them. And my friends were like, why didn't you correct them? And I'm like, cause that's cool. Like, I don't know. So I would say that it was probably in my time in the military when it really got a lot more difficult, being forced to wear the female uniforms that are very different, and there's no need for them to be different because not all of our uniforms are different. And so just different things like that where I couldn't still have that freedom to have an outlet, to be comfortable in any way. I had to be, you know, I was told what to wear from sun up to sundown. So I think that's really when it started to hit a head to where I didn't have that escape anymore. I was very fortunate to serve under while Don't Ask, Don't Tell got repealed. So there was a little bit of, you know, in a different way, a little bit of celebration of freedom there, that we no longer had to worry about being kicked out of the military for loving someone. And I think that, and then just the support of the person that I was dating at the time allowed me to keep asking and seeking deeper questions about, what if I do this? Can this be possible? Is it real? And we kind of went from there.
That makes a lot of sense that, you know, you would have this identity and, you know, it's working for you. You've adapted to the terminology. You shouted it from the mountaintops, and then you were able to just basically express yourself however felt correct for you. And then once you were forced back into the other gender, and like I said, it makes sense that would be a major trigger for you.
Yeah.
What was it like coming to terms now as an adult in the military with this idea of being transgender?
While I say that my embrace of it was kind of quick and easy, I am belying a point that what I didn't realize is that there was something in my past that made me put down a firm blocker to never allow me to push it farther than clothing. And I actually mentioned this in the speech that I was giving the night that I met you, that the movie Boys Don't Cry, I watched that when I was 16. A friend of mine showed it to me. And yeah, that's basically, I was like, okay, I don't want any of that life experience. And even though I've gotten a lot better, I'm a lot more confident and comfortable, especially as my facial hair came in and I started to pass a lot more. But to this day, I still really flinch when I'm about to walk into a bathroom because of what happens to the male in the movie. Brendan, I'm forgetting that first name right now. I buried it deep down inside. I embraced the lesbian that, like I said, gave me the freedom to play with that. And so when it did start to come to a head in the military, I still was very resistant, also because there's still rampant sexual assault in the military. And so all of that just kind of, so while I allowed myself to start thinking about it and pondering it, I got out of the military probably about 6 months later, after I fully started thinking about this and asking questions about looking into surgeries and possible, you know, ways that I would move forward with any type of transition. But it wasn't until I got out that I started taking any moves. I separated from the military in June of 2013, and it was a good 2-year process of my wife and I, you know, going through things, deciding what we wanted to do, getting into therapy. And so I started my transition in 2015. So I was already out of the military when I did decide to start, and I wouldn't have, if I had re-enlisted, I probably would have pushed it off even further. So I'm glad that I decided to get out at that time so that I could, you know, move forward with that.
Yeah, and have that time and space for yourself to get into it.
Yeah.
At that period, did you have a role model or a confidant, somebody to look to, or more specifically, someone to ask questions of and get a little guidance?
Again, yes, I'm extremely fortunate. At the time I didn't know this person. They were someone online. I have now gotten to meet them once when they came out to LA. His name is Aiden Dowling, and he is amazing. He is a trans male. Trans activist. He tours all over the country now, speaking at places. He came out as transgender and really lived the most public life I had ever seen a transgender person live. And that's really when I started. I think I found him right about the time that I was getting out of the military. And so that's when I started like, oh my, you can just do that? Like, he was just living so openly and comfortably, doing full hour YouTube where people just ask him questions about surgeries and and he was just so open and transparent with himself, not only for us and the people asking questions about what we might want to go through, but for friends and family members who, want to find out how to support, and, community members who might want to. So he was just such a great person and a great resource, and lived his life so openly and honestly. That was the final point that I was like, I can do this. I can do this. And so that's why I know how important representation is, being able to see yourself exist somewhere else outside of your head and in this make-believe world that we create to survive. It's really important.
Yeah. So now we'll move into, now that you've come to accept yourself and this identity, now it comes to coming out. What was that experience like for you in general? How did you make those steps? Like, I know some people use a letter, or some people just like band-aid it with a Facebook post. Others will do a lot of direct, one-on-one conversations. What approach did you use?
So mine was mixed, mostly over the phone, some in person. I was born and raised on the East Coast. So the majority of my all of my family and the majority of my friends from before I left for the military in 2009 are all still back east. So for all of them, they got a phone call. What I would say is I started with friends first, because quite a few of them I started letting them know when I started exploring the process, when I started, looking for a therapist, when I started, actually going to make the moves. My wife I was about to say she was the first, but I actually think I told one of my best friends first. I asked what they thought. And I don't know if this is the same for anybody else, but for me, I kind of always did things in weird phases. Like, I started thinking about, what if I just got a mastectomy? It's like, I just always hated my boobs. Maybe if I just cut them off, I'll just be happier and I just don't have to go through a full sex change. Like, and so that's how it started for me. And so I called one of my best friends and I was like, hey, what do you think if I just did this? Instead of, not the hormones and all of this, and, just cut off my boobs. And so that's where I started verbalizing and asking. So second person was my wife, and then some of my friends here. The last important call was to my mom, and that was the hardest. I don't even remember how long I put that off for, but probably just a couple months as I started going through the testosterone and stuff. And I can't remember if because my voice didn't start changing really soon, so I can't remember, but something compelled me. I was like, I can't not keep it from her anymore. I have to let her know. And full disclosure, when I came out as a lesbian, she accepted me and still loved me, but always said that it's not the life I want for you, and never really understood it initially. But fast forward 10 years later, and she was the one helping my wife get ready for our wedding when I was marrying her as a lesbian. So, my mom is old. It takes a little while, but she definitely comes to the plate. And so I have some good news on that front as well. So when I told my mom, immediately her first question was, where is this coming from? Because here's how I said it, is I said, Mom, I got something to tell you. Sorry, I'm gonna try not to, but it's probably gonna. I'm probably gonna cry. So I
It's
said,
okay. It's okay here, definitely.
so I said, hey mom, I got something that I really need to tell you. I said, I need to be your son. I don't want to be your daughter anymore. And her response was, where is this coming from? And when I tell that story to my friends, I've looked like this since I was 15. I had longer hair, but as soon as I got my senior pictures done, she said I could do whatever I wanted with my hair. So I cut it this short and dyed it black. And she was like, oh, well, I wasn't expecting that. But so since I graduated high school, I've basically always looked like this, except for in the military when I grew my hair out so that I didn't look so much like a lesbian. But so everybody else, like I said, my best friend's response was, duh, I've just been waiting for you to figure it out yourself. My mom's honest response was, where is this coming from? And a friend, actually, an older friend, helped me understand that no matter how you think you look right now, your parents always see you as the child that you were at 2, 3 years old. It's kind of memorialized. And yeah, that helped me understand, because I was really shocked that I was just like, how could she not see how I've been living for so long? But yeah, so for any transgender people out there that or questioning or non-binary or any place where you exist on the spectrum of our community, even if your parents don't immediately accept you and understand and are able to see what you feel like has been very, very visible for a long time, I hope that this helps, and this can kind of shed some light on the fact that it's not necessarily their resistance or their refusal to see you as you are and as you want to be seen, but they just remember you as that child that they held and they cradled. And there's no harm or ill intent in that memory being hard for them to correct. We just have to give them time and grace. And as long as they aren't harmful or malicious, just be patient with them and know that they will come with time, because they love you if they're having that fond memory of you as that baby. And so it was hard and it was shocking. And her next response was that I was going against God. And I don't know how much you want me to get into that response, but yeah.
How religious did you feel personally at that point? So that, when she says something like that, I'm kind of trying to get at, like, how much did that hit you in your faith?
So I have for a very long time I described myself as agnostic for a long time, living as a pretty open lesbian in a smallish kind of, I don't know, rural town. They're catching up, but they're still behind in Maryland. We finally just got, I think our first LGBTQ and trans center in the last couple of years. So they're moving along, but they're very much not so in the past. And so, my friends, my mom wasn't very religious growing up. She was dragged to Catholic Mass at 5 a.m. every Sunday and swore that she would never force religion on me. Funny story, fast forward. So in high school, my friends I would go to youth groups and different things with them. I didn't care. I didn't have a devout conviction necessarily. I believed. I was baptized. I'd been to everything from Mormon, Episcopalian, Mormon, Catholic, all the way. I'd been Roman Catholic, all of it.
Wow.
And most of them, the longer I stayed, the weirder it got, and the faster I needed to get the hell out of there. So me and religion have had a complicated experience. The final straw for me with, I will say, organized religion, because it is not what people believe in that gives them faith. It is the rules that we write down to judge and persecute people that are the problem in organized religion. For me specifically, after a specific youth group trip, our youth pastor sat us down and had brought in, our youth group leader had sat us down and lectured us and brought in the pastor even to back her up on how not only is it wrong to be gay, but it was wrong to associate with anybody that was gay. And I stood up and I said, so if my little brother grows up to be gay, I'm supposed to disown him? And this woman looked a child dead in her face and said, yes, you are supposed to stop loving your brother if they are gay. So that was my final straw with organized religion. I said some words to that lady I'm sure she had never heard before and stormed out. So this is not really answering your question specifically yet, but so very, very touch and go relationship with organized religion for me. Swore it off years ago, but I've still always felt some pull, something. I refer to it as the universe. I believe in something out there that has a greater design for us, but I do also still believe in free will. It's a little balancing act between fate and our free will in my mind. So it was more harmful because she had, you know, like I said, fast forward, had become a born again Christian in her later life. Her and my stepdad found God together, and they found a small group at church that was really supportive, accepted me, and then my younger sister, who has now come out as a lesbian. They fully embraced us and accepted us, and so I was happy for her and with that. So I think that's why it was kind of more weird for me, was because I didn't grow up with religion being shoved down my throat, and that wasn't something that, you know, yeah, she taught me to be a good person, leave things better than you found them, treat people like you want to be treated, but without the fear of the fire and brimstone, and someone's going to hurt you if you don't do good things. And so for that to be her response, was that I'm going against God. It kind of flew in the face of other things that she taught me about, you know, just loving and accepting people, and meeting people where they're at. And my response to her was that I completely disagree with you, even if, I said, let's go with this, Mom. I said, even if God is responsible for, your God is responsible for what you say, I said, my interpretation of that is that, okay, God sends the soul down to the body, and then genetics takes over, man-made affliction takes over, all of the things that we have done to this earth and our bodies and polluted. And I said, there are legitimate birth defects that happen, that I said, if you believe that that is all God, I said, then you believe that God is the reason that babies are born deformed, with holes in their hearts, with different things. We have a cousin that was born that had a baby that was deformed, and it was the most tragic thing in the world. And I could not accept that that would be a choice that a creator would make, to just have a soul and a being be born just to have it die within days. I believe that that is something that we have caused on ourselves through all of the things that we've exposed ourselves to through millennia. I mean, we see it physically on people that are born with birth defects, and also with, you know, mental ailments and other things that people live with. Why is it so hard to understand that ours might just be internal, or at least the genetic? Like, it's, you know, I joke that my leg didn't fall off of my X chromosome that it was supposed to. So that's where I feel like my birth was. That's what I prefer to call it. Is if anything, I would consider this a birth defect. I wasn't born with the appropriate external parts to match my internal being, and so I would say that's no different than somebody born with a cleft lip or other things that you choose whether to adjust it or live with it. But that doesn't make you a demon or an evil person or challenging God. So that was my response. And she was like, I don't have all the answers for you. I don't know. And I said, well, then why would you put that on me, that I'm going against something, when you can't verbalize that what it is that I'm even going against? I said, what if I'm honoring your God by living the true self that he sent down to that they sent down to this earth to be?
What are some of the key things that you learned looking back at coming out? Was there anything that you would do differently now, or just any key takeaways?
To be honest, no, I don't think I would do anything really different. Even though there was hurdles and obstacles, the actual physical part of my transition, was, so I guess the mental acceptance of it, because I'd been battling it for years, was, you know, mostly a relief. And then once I started T, you know, as you're saying, that like you stick the needle in, and then you're like, where's my beard? Like, it's like, you're like, because you've already been waiting for so long that now it's here and you want it. And that's not how anything works. And especially in our, you know, even more so now in our time of instant gratification, it's even more so to get us to be patient. And then, you know, they kept trying to tell me everything from, everybody's body chemistry is different and this and that. And, So I definitely learned a lot about patience, both, like you said, with myself, of other people interacting with me. Just patience and grace is what kind of saved me, or what I learned, and what helped me really get through it, with patience and grace, both with myself and with others. I have, sometimes I have a friend that came out as transgender, and I knew them as female before. And even living as a transgender male, I kept saying she. It took me like 3 months at least to wrap my brain and my tongue around that. And so living as a transgender person, struggling with somebody else's pronouns, was like, why, so not why don't we get it? Because it's like I said, once we finally get there, we want everything now, because in our minds, in what we've been going through internally, it's been so long. But to everybody else, they're like, you just got here, calm down. And we're like, no, get everything right, see me. And it is really important, especially when we get to experience that, the first time we pass, the first time we get appropriately gendered, named, and all those things. It is really exciting. But yeah, it was a patience. So when I first started my testosterone, it was in 2015, I didn't see any physical changes for almost 2 years. And it was, we had to cycle through, I had a negative reaction to the first testosterone I was on. It was not the hormone itself, but what it was suspended in, I had an allergic reaction to. We had to change my dosage. And so, patience was so hard. And watching people who, started T a year after me, this friend that I'm talking about, and they had a beard in 3 months. And I was like, bro, I'm gonna, and I was a year and a half in with nothing. I mean, this now, I've now been on T for 8 years. So and we've got it sorted out now, so it's good. But so definitely it was a huge process and patience. So I would just say that I'm glad I got the experience. I would go back and do it again over 100%. I don't regret anything. I would just maybe try earlier, but I'm just glad that I did it, and that I had the patience and grace or was taught the patience and grace to be able to keep going forward. And I'm glad to hear that you share that as well, because what I've seen portrayed of our community, and I feel like it's exacerbated or exaggerated when it is showed, but there is this almost built up fear of interacting with transgender people, because we're going to explode on you if you say something wrong. We're just going to start a fight and scream and freak out. And so there's this like either walking on eggshells thing, or just avoiding it completely. And I feel like that's just counterproductive. And they don't know that. That's not. They're just like, oh, I don't want to. That's scary. I don't want to deal with that. Just stay away. So I'm glad that you're preaching that, because sharing that, because I'm encouraging that, because I'm trying to as well. And just as I shared with your audience, with you all, it took my mom 8 years to get my name right. And what I would say is that it took me almost 30 years to come to terms with everything and figure out who I was and what I wanted to be. We've got to give them at least 30 days, 30 months, right? Like, give them some kind of equivalent of time to rewire their brain and work with it. And, like my situation paid off. I drew a hard line in the sand. I said, don't correct my nieces and nephews. Let them call me uncle. Let them call me Danny. They didn't even have to be explained any of that, right? Because kids are smart. They saw me, they knew who and what I was. And I saw her correct them once. And I said, don't do that again. I said, you can call me whatever you want. I will give you all the time in the world that you need to come to terms with that. I said, but don't confuse them, because it already makes sense to them. And so that was the hard line that I did have to draw in the sand for my mom. And we've both respected that. And that was me giving her patience and grace to let her old mind work.
So you've got this excitement. You've come out. You've got the excitement. You're starting on T and things like that. I'm sure you're starting to feel more like yourself and kind of better about yourself. But at that point, what were the fears that were hitting you?
My therapist, the first step, before, I think one of the first things that my therapist had me do was, I love him. He's a cute little gay man named Sage. He's phenomenal. He was like, okay, so I need you to start using the male restroom. No. No. That's the place I'm terrified of. Yeah. No. Not happening. So that was definitely the biggest both physical and mental challenge for me. And like I said, 8 years later, I still struggle with it. It's better. You know, I might, flinch for a second, but then I just go about my business. But it took me a long time to get there. Mm-hmm. And when I was going to college, in 2015, I was in college while I was transitioning, which is funny because, it's not I'm in my 20s experimenting going to college. I'm in my 30s, but I was still doing some stuff, right? So it's kind of interesting. It's still lined up. Definitely still, obviously now I'm going through all different kinds of hormonal changes, puberty round 2, which people don't really talk about, that it's just puberty round 2. I mean, I don't know about you. I had so much acne. It was so bad. And so many other things, but I was just like, what is wrong? And I was just like, oh, this is what I wanted. Yeah.
I was kind of curious what your take is on restrooms. Do you feel like a gender neutral restroom is the way to go? Or do you feel a lot of satisfaction, as I do personally, being able to use the restroom assigned to that gender that you were never able to before?
Sure. And I'm going to give an answer that I've been starting to give to a lot of questions that is annoying some people, but I think it's a both and. I think that in a lot of aspects of our life, culture, society, and politics, we do ourselves a disservice by going to certain absolutes, and not in how we feel as in our binary, but that we should go to only gender neutral bathrooms or stay strictly male and female bathrooms. There are, in most places, so I guess this would only really be a problem for smaller establishments that might only have 2 restroom doors, right? They don't have a third one. But for places like college campuses, malls, places that already have a variety of bathrooms built in, I don't see why there can't be a male bathroom, a female bathroom, and a gender neutral bathroom. And then that way, if, I don't, because while I have a fear about walking into a bathroom, I also don't want to, even though a lot of their reasoning is garbage, I also don't want to diminish a straight person's or cis person's concern about possibly going into a bathroom with someone whose gender they are unsure of. Just as we want to be respected in our safety, we should, as long as they're not harming us, okay, fine. You want to just go into a male bathroom, fine. So I can understand how, if we tried to go in all extremes in one way or another, nobody's happy. But I feel like we can literally make everyone happy by, there's a male bathroom, there's a female bathroom, there's a gender neutral bathroom. We've already started, even before the whole gendered bathroom discussion came up, I was already amazed years ago by seeing family bathrooms. So this thing that it's new, like, we've already been shifting to a place where we see that there needs to be a place for people of either, both, and every in between to have a place to go. Because just having a male bathroom, as a single dad with a 3-year-old little girl, you don't want to take them into a male bathroom, but you can't go into a female bathroom. Yeah. And so that's the opposite side of it that people don't think about, is having a gender neutral or a family bathroom isn't just placating to us crazy trans people wanting to change the world. It would actually benefit a lot of people. It's not as big of a deal for, a mom taking a little boy into a female bathroom. But I've verbally heard it said by comedians and people I know that they do not want to take their little girl into a male bathroom, because even if nothing negative happens, there's still urinals, right? Like, so there's still the chance that they might see or be exposed to something that they are not quite prepared for, even if it's not intentionally harmful or negative. And so I feel like we need to throttle back the extremists speak in the language that, if we go into these bathrooms, we're either going to be raped or scarred for life and all of this terrible thing. And just be honest, that, hey, that makes me uncomfortable and I'd rather have my own space. Because really that's what we're asking for as well. And so we could, and that's where I and not to judge anybody's beliefs or whatnot, but that's what I found is, and not that I'm trying to walk the middle and make everybody happy. That's just what makes sense to me, is that going one extreme or the other excludes a group of people when both are asking to be included. But there is also, once I got more over it and more comfortable walking into the bathroom, there was even, like I said, there's this fear and then yes, like it's a,
yeah.
So yeah, there is that. And so I don't think going exclusively one way or the other is the answer. And, you know, maybe for places that only have one bathroom or two bathrooms, that, you know, their best solution would just be to go gender neutral. But for places that have dozens, you know, of bathrooms, facilities spread across either a campus or a business or something like that, split them up, whatever.
Yeah. Do you have a particular memory of when, because I do from early in my transition, when I finally got to a point where being in a women's section or even being in a women's restroom, where I thought like, okay, I'm not in a women's restroom, I'm in a women's section, I'm in my section. And I was finally able to own it as mine. Do you have a particular memory of that?
I guess mine was more child to adult, which is weird to say as now I was 30 at the time and now 37. I kept referring to myself as a boy. Like I'm a boy. Like I'm a boy. And just, first of all, because male just doesn't necessarily fit in all, like, you know, proper speaking. And I'm not properly speaking right now. But so I was just, yeah, I'm a boy. And, you know, I'm a boy. That's a girl. You know, man, like, I don't know. So, and when somebody would say something about man, or my wife would be like, no, you're a man. You're not a boy. And I'd be like, ooh. Like I just, and part of it was probably because I was still going through my second puberty and, you know, I didn't have the facial hair. So even if I did pass, it was as like a 15-year-old, you know, young boy. So I think mine was more when I started actually feeling like an adult male, like, yeah, I'm a grown up. Like I can go do all these responsible things. And I don't know, I had already served my country. So like, not that I wasn't responsible things, but I think that was my harder acceptance for me, was like, because I didn't feel like I had wanted to for so long, but I just still didn't feel like a man.
Yeah.
Now I do.
I'm going to jump over to our more sort of ethereal question of the bunch here, and that is, what does transition look like to you? What does it mean to you to transition?
For me, it was making my outside match my inside. And I know for some people it's different. It's like, you know, especially for non-binary people, it's more the freedom from being restricted into one or the other. So as a concept, it's our realization, our manifestation of what we've always felt internally, but didn't know how to express or manifest. And so, and I kind of like that, not only for me, but for others, because there's some, and it, just like I was talking about, the extreme or the absolute cutoff, to where, you know, I heard people talk in certain communities that like, oh, well, if you're not on hormones and do top and bottom surgery, then you're not really, you know, you haven't fully transitioned. And so I don't like that. So for me, I would just say, and what I hope that others can take from that is transitioning is just manifesting whatever you already feel, making it real, making it tangible, becoming our true selves. Like I'm really glad that we've changed and moved away from transsexual and the sex change and things like that, because it's not a sex change. It's an affirmation. It's a realization of the sex that we were always supposed to be. So transitioning to me is taking yourself to whatever place you need to be to reach your true self and maximum happiness.
So as you looked towards transition, did you think,
Oh, right.
and as you were defining transition for yourself early on, were there certain steps and certain things that needed to be included in transition that as you actually got into it and moved along were less important or more important?
Initially, like I said, I had already limited myself before I even let myself fully decide that I wanted to transition. I was like, I'm only going to do this, or I'm only going to do this. So mine went kind of the opposite at first. I went from, I was only going to maybe have a hysterectomy, and then maybe I was only going to have a mastectomy. And to when I let myself fully embrace, I was like, we're going, let's do this. I was like, I want therapy, I want hormones, I want surgery, let's go. Because I was already 30 years old, I was already what my doctor, both my therapist and my physician described as male presenting in my life already in the way I lived. I didn't have to do the 1 year waiting period to even start my hormones. I think I saw my doctor. I was in therapy for about 3 to 6 months, and then I saw my doctor for testosterone, and I think I started testosterone like a month later, not even. And then I was like, I want my name changed. I want my surgeries, this. And then, so it was a balancing act, because they kept telling me to, the patience, the weight, the getting all that. So I would say the most important and the thing that I was most excited about was my hysterectomy.
So we talked about your fears going into transition. As you've gone through, what were some of the hurdles that you ran into, and how did you get over those?
Not physically transitioning for about 2 years was my hurdle, was in that, because I wanted to pass so bad. And it was funny to me because I passed even before I started transitioning, when I was younger, like I said, and I wouldn't correct people when they would, call me a boy or call me sir when I was a teenager. But so like now as a 30-year-old, where I'd like specifically cut my hair and was specifically wearing boy clothes and male clothes and wanted to be male, when I got misgendered, I would get really pissed, but not in a way that I would say anything. But then that was funny, because then me and my wife would end up in a little tiff, because like I was upset and she's like, well, you should have said something. And I was like, no, I wasn't ready to say anything. So there's that as well. So for me, that was my biggest hurdle, was being so desperate to just pass and be a male already. It was like, okay, I've waited 30 years, and then now I'm on testosterone. How much longer do I have to wait? But I'm so glad that I hung in there. My doctor was super awesome, and we kept tweaking my testosterone dosage.
What do you feel you've been able to accomplish because of your transition?
Changing some hearts and minds. Because of some things that I've learned and grown and fully embraced myself with this. And like you said earlier, it's crazy the little bit like the confidence boost that we get from such little things in our transition process. It's like, I didn't even know that I could feel this good. Like, what? Moving along as that, it felt really good when I was embraced and able to have conversations with people that might not have given somebody else the time of day. And so some of it is because it might have been friend or similar acquaintance, and for a variety of reasons, when I'm given the opportunity to break through and I'm able to, it's just absolutely amazing. And so I think that the patience that I had to exhibit with myself in my 2-year process of having no changes happening, the patience with my mom and my family who were struggling to adjust, being able to give that same patience to, and I guess kind of almost like remembering that this stranger that I'm talking to, or whoever it is, I can give them the same patience and grace that I was giving my mom. And again, not to an extent to where anybody's harmful or malicious or being disrespectful to you, but if they're in dialogue, if they're trying to learn and they're just, not there yet, then they deserve that patience because they're trying and they want to learn. And so that has been, I think, my favorite part, is using what is now my cis white male appearance, to break into places where some transgender people might not necessarily be able to get to, and having these conversations that might not have been brought up or had, and actually being able to see people, you know, even if they don't immediately jump to our side or completely embrace us, just giving them something to think about, to where, you know, I don't know, there's a potential there, instead of getting in a fight and having somebody walk away saying, yeah, I knew I hated trans people. Well, son of a bitch. that's not what we wanted.
I think you sort of answered in that what the favorite thing that you've learned on your journey. Is there something else that you'd like to add to that?
I definitely have learned that none of us are perfect. None of us knows everything. And we all just need love and acceptance, no matter who we are, where we are. And oftentimes someone that may be coming at us with hurt and or with violence or anger, or ignorance is most of it. Sometimes they're coming from a place of hurt and fear, and not excusing any negative behavior in any way, shape, or form, but learning that sometimes it came from some bad stuff that had happened to them as well. And, you know, it's not always easy, especially if somebody is screaming in your face or being disrespectful or insulting. A lot of times they just need love and acceptance too, and haven't gotten it and don't know how to show it. And I'm not perfect. I got into a little something with somebody earlier today, not about anything trans, but just to show that, you know, just like I'm saying, I'm not perfect either, even in all that we've talked about tonight in my patience and trying to be patient and graceful with everybody. It doesn't always happen. I don't take transgender as anything negative. I wholly embrace and announce it in my speeches. I am a transgender male. Until they see us, they hear us, they know that we are just as human as them, then the fear is not going to stop. That's the only way to stop the fear. And somebody shared with me that they think that, like, I don't know, as some people are demonizing us and trying to other us, and, you know, and in some ways, some people are like, you all are like kind of the next evolution. Like, we have to go through and do so much self-reflection and soul searching and risk taking and just believing in something and not giving up in the face of so much adversity and uncertainty. I kind of laughed and I was like, I don't know if we could take that, but it was an interesting point that what they shared with me was that many transgender people that they meet are much more open, loving, and accepting because of what we've been through to heal our own selves. And again, we're not perfect. There are people in our community that are assholes and mistreat other people. Yeah, and there it is, even more the proof. I've met some really dickhead transgender people. But that's not a community. That's a person. There's assholes in all communities. But at the end of the day, most of it boils down to they've been hurt, misled, fed ignorance, and we're all just human at the end of the day and want to be loved, and just trying to embody and embrace and share that, because I know so many of us feel so lost and alone and hopeless a lot of times, and that, you know, we're going through this struggle alone. And that's what I would say. Another most exciting thing was when I met my other first transgender person, because I'd only seen these people online. Even the mentor I feel like I looked up to, I had never met one in person. So that was really exciting when I was like, oh, hi.
So with all you've learned and what you've been through, what advice do you have to pass on to younger closeted trans folks out there?
don't give up. You're not crazy. You're not wrong. And there's nothing wrong with you. Some things might have not gone as the way they were supposed to as you were developing. But that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. There is a place for you. There are people who love, support, and celebrate your existence. And seek them out. Even there are going to be hard times. There's going to be hard times. There's no way to lie and say that your transition is going to be sunshine and rainbows. But I hope that you find that most days. And don't give up on the cloudy days. It's okay to take refuge and go inside and not be out in the world when you need to be. And when you're ready to be you, we're ready to embrace you and love and support you. It does get better. I know that can sometimes sound cheesy, but I think that not only some of the other amazing transgender people that we have all over the world right now doing amazing things, if you know no one else, Emily and I are sitting here living proof that it does get better. Don't give up. We love you.